So it's time to prepare this opening for putting the zip in. What we're going to do is we're going to pinch the two seam allowances together like this and make sure that the crease line, the fold line, the ironing line, they're sitting on top of each other. We're going to temporarily close that over with some pins. So just pin straight through your ironing line the whole way along. So the hole is temporarily closed. What we're going to do now is replace those pins with some thread. So we're going to do a temporary running stitch between where that stitching finishes here and where this stitching finishes here. We're going to replace the pins. And all we're going to do is we're going to go down and up in a simple running stitch about 1 centimetre apart. Not too big because it won't hold together properly. So just run your thread, your needle and your thread straight through both layers all the way along. Take your pins out as you come to them. Oops, I've got a bit of a knot in my thread. There we go. Just going to run that the whole way along. Now you can see here that I've got the tail, the spare tail of my thread caught up in my stitching. I want to pull that out and just pull it along so that you're only sewing with a single thread. Take your final pin out. Keep your stitching nice and straight, so stay on that line, down on that line, up on that line, and we'll go all the way to the machine stitching. And to finish off, we're just going to do one back stitch like this. So just go backwards and forwards and then cut your thread off. All right, so now that hole has been temporarily closed with our stitching and we need to open that up again. So now we're up to putting the zip on. And so this is your zip, my zip's blue, that's the only one I had at home when I'm doing it. Just check your zip works. All right, open it and close. Now, so this is called the zip head, and the zip head needs to go upside down. And it's going to sit in the middle of the seam allowances. So what you've got to do is the zip head has to sit just inside where your hand stitching starts and right in the middle. And what we're going to do is we're going to pin that down on one side on the tape and then down on the other side on the tape. So it's right in the middle. Okay. Then we're going to run the zipper teeth right down that center line. So run it straight down and we're going to pin on either side. Keep it running straight down the middle. Pin on either side all the way to the bottom. Like this. So I've temporarily pinned my zipper in. Now we're going to take our needle and thread again and we're going to replace the pins with more running stitch up this side of the tape, and then we're going to cross over and we're going to come down the other side of the tape, and that will replace the pins. So the first thing we need to do is tie knots in our thread. So you tie several knots on top of each other to stop the thread from pulling, the end of the thread from pulling through the fabric. Several knots. Make it a nice big knot. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to start at this end and I'm just going to run my needle straight through the zipper and both straight through to the front of the pencil case. And once again, I'm going to use stitches that are about 1 centimetre in size. And I'm going to go the whole way along this side of the tape. And if you turn it over, you can see that you're stitching. You can see the stitching on the outside here. It's very important that you go all the way through to the front. Take your pins out as you come to them and replace them with stitching. We will be taking this temporary stitching out once we've sewn the zip in with the sewing machine. So it's just there to hold it all in place while we machine stitch it. Now, when you get to the top end of the zipper tape, come through. What we're going to do is spin this around, and I'm just going to bring my needle straight over and start stitching on the other side. No need to finish your stitching, not your stitching off, we just keep going straight down the other side like this. Sometimes your thread gets caught on things, just make sure that you release it. The other thing is make sure that your stitches aren't too tight. We don't want it bunching up the zipper. We just want it sitting nice and flat. Nearly there, and you go right to the end, and once again, to finish off the row of stitching, we're just going to do one back stitch and cut your thread off. Okay, so that zipper is temporarily stitched in place. If I flip it over, you can see my stitching on the other side. So now it's ready to take to the sewing machine.